Hello and welcome to Opkey's webinar, A Practical Guide to Workday Testing, Streamline Your Workday Testing Process for Maximum Efficiency. We're so excited to be hosting this webinar today to share practical insights on how you can be getting the most use out of your Workday app and all of your associated applications through test automation. We are also so excited to announce that Opkey is, as of very recently, an officially certified test automation partner for Workday, specifically Workday Financials and Workday HCM. We are so excited to announce this major move because it really puts an emphasis on the efforts Opkey has implemented in our own platform over the last year to make sure we are optimized for Workday testing, we understand Workday testing needs, and we're really an ally in getting the most out of your Workday. So today we are joined by Dimpy Sharma, our VP of Product Solutions, and she has extensive experience in all things Workday testing as well as other packaged apps, and she really has been on the ground with teams going through everything from migrations to implementations to update testing to ad hoc business testing. So today, again, we're really going to be covering both for beginners and people who are more familiar what exactly Opkey is, why it's built out specifically for Workday, how it can help you get the most time, money, cost savings in your Workday testing, and especially why Workday is such a great choice for your different options. So I'm going to pass it over to Dimpy, and if you have any questions, please go ahead and pop them in the bottom in the Q&A function. There will also be a recording that will be sent automatically to you if you miss anything. There will also be a Q&A section at the end. So Dimpy, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. And thank you so much, everyone, for making the time. Very proud, very excited to be Workday partners. And here we also hold another session for you guys. And this is on Workday test automation and the practical guide to how to go about it. So we'll be covering understanding the overall landscape of Workday as a testing and what it entails and where to emphasize on. How to overcome the challenges, not only in test automation, but overall in the testing lifecycle, implementing best practices, how to go by Workday testing on the BAU cycles or the patch release cycles. Everywhere there are different best practices to be followed, accommodating, as I always say, accommodating the process and the technology together, and harnessing Opkey's own test automation platform and how it can benefit you, just to come about the entire the ERP platform across all of your operations on the testing and validation side of things. Yeah, and obviously towards the end we'll take any questions that you guys have. So quickly jumping on, understanding Workday Testing Essentials. One of the key things that is required in essentially an application which is so integrated and so as a heart of the human capital management on the platform, on the operations of the organization, there are multiple releases that go by. Since it is a cloud application, it deals with a lot of security changes. It deals with a lot of changes on the business processes across the core HR, the absences of the employees, the entire compensation, benefits, the entire financials. There are multiple planning and end-to-end integrations that are happening at multiple times. There's Workday Studios, there are integrations that are inbound and outbound that is happening across multiple tenants. And we want to just make sure that just across any changes that we are doing from an implementation side, from our IT teams, we just want to make sure that all of that is not affecting production in any sense. And it could not be the challenges that you would face on a Workday application per se, but these are challenges that you see when you have the configurations in place, right? So there are certain challenges that you only come across when those configurations that you have done on the Workday application, and that gets merged by the Workday application updates. That's where the challenges start coming in, right? And how to mitigate them, how to make sure that your testing and validation test suites are, first of all, absolutely comprehensive. Your user acceptance is absolutely on point. All the time business processes are like part of the UAT test suites that you're constantly measuring, and all the integrations are in place, which means that the web services, the database, all the technologies that you're connected to, the employee data, the payroll integrations, unless we make sure that these regression tests are validated right after the change, we won't be able to analyze what really happened, right? In terms of the updates, and it could be the APIs, it could be the challenges across UIDs. We don't know unless we really undergo these updates and those are merged by the data set that we change on a regular basis. It could be as simple as an access not working, and that could possibly be because there were certain action and field level permissions that you have modified, but you'd never know because those changes on the privileges side was directly made as part of Workday's own update. So unless we really update that, we make sure that the regression suites are completely up to date, we won't be able to locate them. So essentially, like these 4 pointers would be the areas that we'd want to focus our use case based testing and validation test suites. There should be a regression test suite only during the implementation because that's targeting your SIT cycles, that targeting your UAT cycles. There should be a test regression suite only dedicated towards the cloud updates or your release cycles. There should be a test suite that's only dedicated to your integration tests. Now, unless we are really dealing with these use cases individually, we won't be able to have a comprehensive test bed that is really targeting that area and you're really making sure all of your tests are in place. And not losing another point is going to be security tests. We want to make sure that the action and field level permissions are also in place. With that, how do we overcome these challenges? Now, if we talk about testing as a whole, overcoming these challenges would have certain things that we want to make sure that's something we want to achieve as part of these challenges and these use cases. There are multiple changes that are happening. There are changes that are constantly happening in terms of the release cycles. That's one. In terms of the functional areas that you are incorporating in your organization and part of your operations, which Workday is a part of. The expertise on testing and validation, it's human dependent. There are implementation specialists, consultants that are really making sure that these different systems are well integrated. The configurations are part of them. I mean, how do you like incorporate and make sure that these tests are constantly updated? How do you take care of the time? How do you take care of the cost? And overall compliance. I mean, security cannot be obviously left, and that will actually complete the more exhaustive test bed. These are the areas that we just keep in mind while creating these test beds, and these are the areas that we want to overcome when we go through these tests. One of the key best practices that we'd like to frame as a framework would be how do you test as early as possible? How do you make sure that your entire test bed is completely on point before you actually hit that particular change? Because there are multiple things that are going to constantly come up. There are refreshes that you want to make sure that the key production and the key processes are working. So that's a critical test suite that is constantly taking care of any kind of changes. If you're applying like continuous change cycle in terms of your internal updates, those are constant configuration modifications. How do you monitor these changes continuously? So these test beds, again, on the similar lines, we want to make sure that we are hitting these use cases separately, just to make sure that the entire bed and all the use cases are completely covered as part of your overall testing and validation. But essentially, for Workday as an application, the major thing that we want to take care of is if our tenant is really prepared. So if we are going for a release, or if we are going for, say, a weekly refresh pack, we just want to make sure that the test prep is also taken in account for. So if there are functional consultants that you want to put a standby on, if you want to make sure that you have validated the processes that are part of your regression suite ahead of time. So we want to make sure that is done. If there are any changes on the integration side, we want to make sure that that's also on point. Just doing the prep work before you hit any release is also as important as making sure that the test regression suite is a part of the overall test bed. And if you're doing manual testing, another key aspect is going to be test data. What is the test data that you're going to use? Is it going to be created manually? Is it going to be as the same as that you used on the um, previous test cycle? No, you'll have to constantly modify it based on the changes that are occurring on the instance. So for example, if there's a functionality that you just configured, or a BP as we call in Workday, that you just configured, and that BP is also integrating and talking to multiple other BPs, that then the idea would be to have obviously a more comprehensive set of test cases that are taking care of the new functionalities, but also there are test data also prepared along with the prerequisites, which are going to make sure that these tests are run on time, whether we are utilizing manual or automated tests. Another bigger best practice would be, how do you assess that change? If there is any change that we are going to, and uh, at at the intersection point of that change, is testing going to come? So at every change, if we are assessing these change using an um, a, a way of measuring the impact, whether it is a manual assessment of these functionalities going by functionality on different tenants, because one tenant would be a dev environment, another tenant would be a test environment where the actual patch and release is going to hit. So you have two tenants where you can do the comparison. So you want to make sure that if you're doing it manually, you do a one-on-one comparison using the help of the consultants. But if you have an automated platform where you have the capability to compare the two platforms and two tenants, it would be the greatest idea, because you want to make sure that you assess the change ahead of time and you make informed decisions, and you add your regression update your regression test suites accordingly. So that's very critical. You also want to make sure that you have a risk-based test suite in place. So if you have assessed the changes that are going to occur on certain functionalities, those functionalities and the test scripts related to those functionalities become utmost important, and that directly go into the risk-based test, which should be the P0 test that runs at the time of the first run that happens at the time of the execution of your release cycle. It is going to immediately give you a feedback of, hey, this was changed, and we validated what had changed. And then obviously a big, larger regression test suite should be executed, which makes sure that because of these changes that have been done, there is no other damage that has been done on other functionalities. And based on our experience working with different customers, major issues come about on the security and access side of things, or the intersection of the data changes and the configuration changes that you make to the tenant, and the intersection of that plus the intersection of the enhancements and the functionalities that are introduced as part of the change. So in any which case, whether it is manual or automation, the test prep is very critical. The risk-based test and the impact assessment is very critical. The uh, making sure that the regression suite is updated is very critical. And obviously towards the end, you want to run the end-to-end integration tests as well. Why Opkey? Well, what Opkey is trying to do across different ERPs is just taking the game to another level, where we're able to help our customers achieve all of this in the least amount of time possible. And we are only able to achieve it because we have a playbook of what has worked with our customers across these ERPs and um, these these major operations, and the organizations who have been utilizing these as part of their operations. So we have been working and we have been making sure that their testing and validation was in place. But also be that because of that playbook being ready for us, we are constantly innovating on our technology as well. So we know what is required to kind of get this completed as early as possible, so you can focus on the right things, and this recurring stuff can be just given to a platform that knows its bit and is going to take care of anything, any issue on the production, on the testing environment, wherever the change has happened. So you can go to a product risk-free production environment. So starting with a real-time change impact assessment, I just emphasize that's very, very critical. We want to make sure and we want to assess what has changed to be able to make more informed decisions. So this is very, very critical. Another important aspect is to understand what has been included in this particular release cycle in terms of the enhancements, what that means, how many test scripts need to be included, how the data is going to come about. All of that is part of Opkey's test discovery approach, which is enabled by process mining, that allows us to understand the processes, how you have configured in the system. Plus, that also allows us to get the data mined from the platform as well, which means that we are able to generate the test data automatically to the test scripts. And that's a big chunk of efficiency loss that happens, right? So that takes us immediately weeks ahead of anybody. Then we are also enabled by the pre-built set of libraries that we have created across comprehensive libraries across the financials, the supply chain, and the HCM modules, which and across all the different sub modules as and the functionalities that are part of these major modules, which take care of most of these regression suites upfront. And that's constantly updated release after release, just to make sure that you don't have to worry about any changes that come about standard from the application that's already part of the out of the box library. And then we know the importance of how audit and security compliance and what it does to the operations, and how much time you have to spend just to make sure that or those auditory compliances are in place, whether it is third party, whether it is internal. It's very critical, and we are constantly kind of working on that. So we are mindful of that, and that's why there are multiple types of reporting that we provide to our customers, which are extremely comprehensive, have all the data that you require from the auditory perspective. What are the components that were used with the screenshots, date and timestamps, as details as possible, with all the execution details, execution status details. So you know what happened on that particular release against that functionality that was part of the regression suite. So you can constantly, share that with the respective teams. Also becomes a very good tool for training. So if there are folks that are joining in at different stages of the life cycle of the platform, you could just utilize these reports and these documents as playbooks and training documents for them to kind of learn what was happening across the platform, both from testing and validation and the process perspective. And lastly, I think this is why we do the entire gamut of what we do as part of technology and processes to help our customers achieve the kind of business benefits that they strive for, right? They want speed, but not at the cost of any risk. They want, they are okay to take care of the costs, but at any point there should be no risk. They're always aware, they know there is a good support. So we make sure that our customers achieve all of that, and we are constantly innovating on the technology, and we are making sure that our process is in place, so we have this constant line of benefits for our customers at all times. But at any point, the comprehensive area of tests, making sure that we have the entire test data in place, action and field level permissions on the security validation is critical. And the idea is to have a good coverage, risk-free production environment with the least amount of time. And I think for the overall assistance on the business processes, it's a good blueprint of all the test processes, anything that was in at risk. So you have all the documentation at the end of release cycle just by a click of a button. So you have the blueprint of the processes in the form of the playbook. You have all the test results. You have the coverage on what should be the the ideal test coverage across business processes. You have all the data combinations. You have the uh, and there are no defects that are going to uh, uninformed or random defects that go to the production environment. So you're constantly aware of what configuration is working, what's not. So you can that the analytics of the efficiency on every process and the gaps that we find constantly on between our operations and the actual validations across like 100 teams that we have across the globe is significantly reduced. And yeah, I think we've it was kind of a short discussion, but I think we're open to questions, and we'll come with a more comprehensive Workday webinar for all of you with more details and a demo of the platform very soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dimpy. Feel free to pop your questions in the chat. We'll jump in here. Can you speak a little more about the pre-built tests? I haven't experienced using these before.
100%. So these are tests that you have as part of the accelerator. Opkey has done that for multiple platforms on ERP. So we know the trick of how that helps across the operations on the testing and validation is very, very critical. So you're not running into a testing automation platform with zero data. So as soon as you come on board, you have all the licenses across all the modules that you have the pre-built libraries for. So if you want to run the entire test suite for core HR, you have all the tests related to core HR already in place. And the way it's orchestrated is also very critical, which means that it has the pre-built libraries at Opkey are aligned with the reusable capabilities of these components, which means that you can reuse them over and over again across different business processes. And it is made for scale, which means that if you have made a change at one component at one place, it is immediately applicable to 500 tests that you're running across the overall test suite. That and the pre-built libraries is constantly updated. The accelerator library across the HR, the financials, the supply chain is continuously updated. So you're not worried about at the time of release cycles, hey, these 10 different enhancements have come up and I don't know how to create the test scripts for them, because the pre-built libraries come up with these test scripts. So you immediately know that okay, yeah, so this is how the tests are going to look like, and these are the testing test cases that I should be including, and the data also comes for those enhancement automatically. So you immediately taken off all the effort that was required to be done, and trust me, that's like very extensive.
Absolutely. For anyone wishing more detail on that, please check out Opkey's blog library, or feel free to request a demo directly with our sales team at sales@opkey.com. We have another question. Is this recommended for new to Workday clients or post-production support?
It's recommended for both. There are different use cases, and you can utilize the platform at different use cases at different times. So if this is like ongoing implementation, think about this, and you are running a SIT cycle, there are multiple functionalities that you want to test for your SIT cycles that will be critical. So in fact, having early in the life cycle is just going to make a lot of difference, because we'll be aligned with the requirements, we'll be aligned with all the functionalities that you're incorporating at that time. We use our own life cycle management to do that overall test management and link all of these requirements to the automated tests from the scratch. So by the time we reach the UAT tests, all the automation test scripts are already embedded, aligned with everything that you already have as part of your organization. So to answer your question, post-production and ongoing implementation both.
Wonderful. Thank you. Another question. What kind of support/training does Opkey provide to new users who are transitioning to your platform? We don't have experience with this kind of no-code automation.
Sure. Again, very critical for us. We want to make sure that you guys are completely trained and like more in more detailed manner are onboarded to the platform. So that's very critical to us. What kind of training? It's like instructor-led training that's provided with an ILT program and certification program that's for you guys, plus an hand-holding support and executive support just to make sure that you you are successful in whatever you try to onboard across any module. So we make sure that we are aligned with the team at all times, and it's comprehensive. It takes care of all the use cases. So you're trained in different ways. So if you're doing it for an ongoing implementation, you're trained such. If you're going ahead for an release cycle certification, then you're trained as such. If you're making sure that all your modules are in place from the pre-built libraries directly, the training. So we just make sure that all the use cases that you're actually looking for, and whatever stage you are in the implementation cycle, we train you accordingly.
Perfect. We have one more question coming in. How does Opkey ensure data security, especially with things like sensitive employee information and HPN?
PII is again important for us to just help and make sure that that's kind of a key aspect of something that we take care of as an organization. So we have multiple certifications that take care of the entire PII information as part of the platform. That plus there are multiple features in the platform that also make sure that the PII is in place. For example, the impact snapshots. So if you're making sure that if you're enabling that feature where you don't want the snapshots to be captured, it just doesn't capture that particular snapshot. Plus, we make use of our own transactions for the test data. So we don't use any configuration and any data that you have already in the system across people. So that's how we take care of it.
Wonderful. We have another question. Do you have a standard set of test cases for each module, or must the client provide this?
We have a standard set of tests across different modules, and but there are use cases where customers do provide us the test that they have or their system integrators have given them and things like that. And to make them comfortable, we do a traceability matrix for them, aligning them what means what in terms of our language and the test libraries that they have been using historically. So we do a mapping so they're like comfortable at different age.
Wonderful. We have time for one more question. Can Opkey integrate with existing testing frameworks and tools already used by our organization? We already have testing in place, but want to cover certain gaps with automation.
Yes. Yes, we integrate with all the different major popular test management tools out there, Jira, Sapphire, multiple test automation platforms. Plus, we have an architecture of open API services. So if there's any platform that you guys are using and we don't have the integration right away, we just take some time and support that.
Wonderful. If there's any more questions, go ahead and pop them in. Final time. All right. Well, we'd like to thank everyone so much for checking out the webinar. Again, we have a variety of white papers, ebooks, blogs, and information available at www.opkey.com. If you'd like to see a demo that could be more specific to your particular use case, please reach out to our team at sales@opkey.com. Again, we're so excited to be a newly minted Workday Test Automation partner. And thank you again, Dimpy, for your expertise. We'll see you all again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.